Hello and welcome to the Analog Toys live stream, a very impromptu live stream. I just woke up this morning and I kind of came up with this idea yesterday. And I woke up this morning, I was like, I'm on holiday at the moment. I've got family coming to visit tomorrow. I've got a bit of tidying up to do before they get here. But I've basically got a free day and I'm like, let's do a live stream. And yeah, when I came up with the idea yesterday, I happened to have digital copies of every single Palatoid trade catalog going back to the early 1960s. So when I was selecting a particular year to focus on, I thought, why not focus on the year that I was born and go for the 1977 trade catalog? Now, before we actually get into the catalog or catalogues, because there's a couple of them, I suppose I want to explain a little bit about what trade catalogs are. So if you remember when we were kids and we were collecting action figures, things like Star Wars and G.I. Joe, they had all the figures listed on the back, what they call the cross-sell. And I, for one, I remember certainly keeping one of my Star Wars card backs and ticking off the figures that I had and the figures that I needed and stuff like that. But then inside the boxes of play sets and vehicles and things, we would often get small pamphlets or big fold-out posters showing you all the different product that was available that year. Great photography in most of these leaflets and pamphlets and that kind of thing. But it was always very, very small. I remember the Star Wars ones. They were little booklets about the size of a cigarette packet. Well, what the toy companies used to do back in the day was make much larger form trade catalogs, which they would take to Toy Fair and they would be actually given to the retailers. So they can go back and go through all the different product and decide what it is they're going to buy to stock in their stores. And in 1977, Palitoy had 4 different trade catalogs. They had the main Palitoy catalog, which featured all of their kind of homegrown product. They had the Palitoy Bradgate catalog, which featured a lot of their imported product. And they had the Parker catalog, which showed all of the board games. And then they had a mainline catalog, which was all about trains. I'm not into train sets, so I haven't bothered kind of pulling up that catalog. But we've got 3 quite extensive catalogs to go through tonight. Unfortunately, when I loaded them into the computer, into StreamYard, it kind of mixed up the page order for some reason, but it doesn't matter. We'll go through the 3 catalogs. Well, depending on how we go for time. I do want to try and keep this stream to about an hour tonight, maybe an hour 15, because I do have some stuff to do. But we'll definitely go through the Palatoy catalog and the Palatoy Bradgate catalog, and if we've got time, we'll go through the Parker catalog. But real quick, I want to say hello to a few people in the chat. We've got Michael Schaefer, Keith Knight, Will McLaughlin, Rolando, Jim Largo, Bobby L. Collins. This is actually Tim Hayes. How are you? Embargo 97, how are you? Alex Grimes, Gojatron, Kal-El 48. Paul Bates says hello from the UK. You're from the UK, so's Keith. I know it's late there. Time zones are a bitch. I couldn't do this any earlier. A very good turnout for an impromptu stream. Thank you all for being here. I think this is going to be a ton of fun, especially if you've never seen the Palatoy trade catalogs before. So let's get into the first one, which is the main Palatoy catalog. Now, these were A4 size, kind of glossy magazines. In fact, probably a little bit kind of A4 size, around that. Laser Pants says hello from his truck. Thank you, Drew G. When I had the t-shirts made years ago with the new Analog Toys logo, I wanted it on a very, I wanted the color of the t-shirt to really contrast against the Analog Toys logo and make it pop. You can get these t-shirts. We've got a merch store. Link is in the description. I don't really plug it very often. It's on teespring.com. But if you want an Analog Toys shirt, there's a whole bunch of different ones available. And Keith Knight, thank you very much for the super chat. It says, hello, mate. Just simply because it's Palatoy, the god of my childhood and the best toy company ever. I completely agree. The best toy company in history. But I'm biased. Okay, let's get into the Palitoy catalogue for 1977. Now, as I said, when I loaded these into the computer, so I'm using an Apple Mac in preview. For some reason, it threw all the pages out of order, but it doesn't matter. This was the front cover, which is quite unusual for Palatoy because a lot of their front covers actually featured images of the toys. This one, I suppose, kind of shows a Christmas gift. And on the box there, you see Palatoy 77, denoting that it is the 1977 trade catalogue. Now, the next image I'm going to show you is actually page 32 of the catalogue. As I said, it threw it all out of order, but page 32 is a great place to start because this is a 1977 range of Palatoy Action Man. And look at that photography. I mean, you need to remember that in 1977, we didn't have Photoshop and stuff like that. You know, this was down to the skill of the photographer. And this is a wonderful image. I'm sure I've used this in videos before. Unusually, though, for 1977, you'll see that there is the Action Man lifeguard uniform here, which wasn't actually available in 1977. I don't really know why that is on the cover introducing that particular section. But we also have here the Action Man Land Rover, one of the best vehicles they ever made, along with the iconic Scorpion tank. The Royal Marines Exploration Team set there, which I have a wonderful carded version of that, which is a very, very big card back with the large yellow inflatable dinghy. And some other classic outfits like the Frogman, the helicopter pilot, the basic soldier, that kind of thing, the Australian jungle fighter over there. Then the next page shows us Action Man patrol uniforms. The patrol uniforms were child-sized outfits and accessories, which I never knew these existed when I was a kid. I have a couple of the items now. I have the red beret. I have the mess kit, which got the Action Man logo on the mess kit and that kind of thing. I wish I had known these existed when I was a kid. I mean, I was born in 77, so by the time I would have really gotten into playing with this stuff would have been around 81. And yeah, I don't think they were still doing the Action Man patrol uniforms in 81. I could be wrong. But yeah, some very cool and interesting sets there. So here shows you a bit more of a close-up of some of the items that were available. The helmet, the water bottle, the mess kit is one of the items that I have. I don't believe I've got the knife, fork, and spoon to go with it, but I have the mess kit. And then you got also available was a big sheet of sticker badges, so you could, on your uniform, give yourself sergeant stripes or make yourself a medic or a military police officer. And a few more items. So there was a walkie-talkie. These down here, I believe I've got one or two of these. These were actually embroidered badges that you could ask your mother or your grandmother to sew onto your uniform. Again, I would have loved stuff like this when I was a kid. We have a Transistor Radio. I've never even really come across this in all the years of collecting. And the Outdoor Adventure Kit that contains a belt, water bottle, compass, whistle string, heliograph, tins for first aid kit, emergency rations, a camera, a map case. Very, very unusual stuff. I don't think I've ever seen that Outdoor Adventure Kit in a carded form available on any eBay or Facebook groups or anything like that. So some really interesting items. So we got 3 pages of the Action Man patrol sets showing all the different products there. And now we get into my favorite part, which of course is the Action Man figures, outfits, and vehicles. So here we have the 1977 lineup of the basic figures. What's interesting to note here, so this is Action Man with Eagle Eyes. I believe this is the first year they did Eagle Eyes. Could have been 76. No, I think it was 76 actually. But they say here that the Eagle Eye Adventurer is new for 77. So the Adventurer was not a new figure. The Adventurer had actually come out all the way back in 73. I believe this was the second year of Eagle Eyes, because in the first year of Eagle Eyes, we got the sailor, the helicopter pilot, and the soldier. No. I have all of these figures in the box, the Eagle Eye versions. This might be the first year we got them in Eagle Eye version. Man, I thought I was very knowledgeable about Action Man, and I'm now doubting myself. I need to brush up on my Action Man history here. But these were the basic figures that were available. They were sold in solid boxes. The Sailor is one of my favorite. I love the artwork of that, but I have all 4 of these figures boxed. There was also a talking commander. I have the figure. I don't have it in the box. I would really like to complete that set of boxed figures one day. Then we get into the Action Man team. I have all of these figures. I have them all boxed except for Bullet Man. I've got a reproduction box for Bullet Man. My Atomic Man and my Tom Stone are 2 of the best conditioned boxes I have in my collection, and some of the best conditioned figures. They were, mint unplayed with. The boxes weren't sealed, but they were never ever played with. These were all Hasbro design products. So Atomic Man was introduced into the Hasbro G.I. Joe team as somewhat of a way for Hasbro to compete against the Kenner $6 million man. And he was called Mike Power, the Atomic Man. When he was released in the UK, they dropped the Mike Power part. They called him Atomic Man. They gave him a different outfit, and they also modified the figure slightly. The Action Man version actually comes with an atomic heart pacemaker, which I don't believe came with the Adventure Team version. Tom Stone is your basic African America Adventure Team member, given a new name and a slightly different outfit. Bullet Man, another Hasbro invention, although if you note the jets on the back of his boots at the bottom there, that was something that Palitoy introduced that wasn't on the original Hasbro product. And then, of course, we have the Intruder. He came in a small box. He's a really stupid figure, but I have it in my collection because I love the artwork on the box. And he was the enemy of Action Man, the first kind of dedicated enemy figure. Up until that point, Action Man didn't have an enemy figure. He was just a generic man of adventure who you could dress in various uniforms. The Intruder was the first real enemy figure. And then, of course, later on in the line with the Space Rangers, we got Captain Zargon and the Zargonite Pirates and all that kind of stuff. Okay, now we get on to some really cool looking vehicles. And again, I love this photography. So I don't have the Scout car now. I had that as a child. These blow molded Scout cars are quite easy to come across on the collector's market. But just due to size, it's a very basic looking vehicle. I've had to really be selective with the vehicles that I have in my collection. I do have the motorcycle and sidecar with the dispatch rider, and I have that in a nice box, a beautiful piece. This item here, the Spartan personnel carrier, is somewhat similar to the Scorpion tank. The chassis is different, and you can see rather than having a large gun turret on there is a small commander's turret and a opening back door where you can put a few Action Man figures in the back there. It says it will transport 6 Action Men. So obviously 1 in the turret, I think 1 in the driver's seat. Hopefully you can see my cursor there. I believe there's a hatch there where the driver goes, or it might be on that side. So you have the driver and the commander, and then you can seat 4 light infantry troops in the back of the Spartan personnel carrier. I would love to add this to my collection. They very rarely come up for sale in Australia, if ever. And obviously buying one from the UK, this toy would be about this big in a large box. I would end up paying, if I paid £200 to £300 for a mint complete vehicle, I would probably end up paying another £200 to get it shipped here. So, but a very, very cool selection of Action Man Transport Command vehicles there. And here we have a few more. So the Army Land Rover, designed by Palatoy with permission and in conjunction with the Land Rover Company. I believe this was probably the last year they ever sold this. Then we have the basic Jeep, which was blow molded. The Land Rover was not a blow molded item. It was an injection molded item, which makes it quite fragile today. It's a different type of plastic used. I would like to add the trailer to my collection. The trailer was sold individually. A really cool piece designed to go with the Land Rover. So it's a bit odd here that they've put it with the Jeep, but I suppose any vehicle with a tow hitch can tow it. So King Eric, the greatest of all, says, does it say the original prices anywhere? It doesn't say it in the trade catalogues. There is another supplementary document that would be given to the retailers that would have the wholesale cost of the items. I do have that document, but it's on the other computer. I can't kind of pull that up now. But again, that would show you the wholesale cost and I think that's like per case as well. So there would be quite a bit of mathematics involved to try and figure out what the retail price would actually be. Kieran Ball, yes, I agree. Bullet Man and Tom Stone are amazing figures, but both are very rare and difficult to find in good condition. Absolutely. Tom Stone, the body type is more, it's similar to the very late issue G.I. Joe Adventure Team muscle body, which was only introduced in the Action Man range with that figure and not much else, I think. Those Action Man's dynamic physique was very different to the Hasbro G.I. Joe muscle body physique. And one of the difficult things with Tom Stone is there was a rubber connector going through the shoulders that would hold the arms on, and that rubber perishes over time and they fall apart. The arms fall apart at the elbows and at the shoulders. So you have to, and I've had to restring mine with some elastic. And the Bullet Man in my collection is a G.I. Joe version and not the Action Man version. I would like one day to add the Action Man Bullet Man to my collection. Go figure. Yeah, he says it's hard to wrap your head around an action figure line at retail nowadays, having more than one vehicle if you're lucky. These were the days. And not only that, remember that this is a 12-inch line of figures, 1/6 scaled figures. These vehicles were enormous. In my experience, most of the kids that I knew who I played Action Man with, most of us tended to have around 3 or 4 Action Men, seemed about the right kind of number. Some kids obviously had less and really lucky kids had more, but you would have around 3 or 4 figures, maybe around 6 or 7 different outfits. And most kids had like 2 vehicles, a larger vehicle like a Jeep and a smaller one like one of the motorcycles. And you would often find that you would have some vehicles that were made by another company called Shirley. Shirley did not make action figures. They just came onto the market with a whole series of blow molded figures, blow molded vehicles manufactured in Action Man scale. They were a slightly cheaper alternative to the Palitoy ones. And a lot of kids I remember had a little bit of both. I had the Shirley Jeep and trailer as a kid. I had the Shirley German motorcycle and sidecar. I had the Action Man scout car. I was quite lucky because I had hand-me-downs from other people. How do I... There we go. Sorry, I was just trying to remove the comment from the screen. Okay, let's keep going through the catalogue. Here we have the Scorpion tank and the somewhat rare 105mm light gun, which actually worked. It had a spring-loaded breech. You see it comes with a bunch of shells there. A very, very cool piece. I had this in my collection for a while. It wasn't in perfect condition. It was a little bit broken. And when I moved from Perth to Port Hedland, I decided to, just because of the size of all the vehicles, creates quite the storage issue. I sold off all of my vehicles that didn't have boxes to a fellow collector down in Perth, to a man called Dean Martin, a wonderful guy. And I'm pretty sure he got the 105mm light gun. I think the only vehicle that I kept that didn't have a box was the German motorcycle and sidecar car in the desert tan colors. But that 105mm light gun was a lot of fun when you were a kid. It really was a ton of fun. And of course, the classic Scorpion tank, an icon of the Palitoy Action Man range. A very, very cool item, and I'm very pleased to have a mint condition one in my collection. Okay, now we get to some interesting pieces here. We've got the basic helicopter. I did a video a number of years ago, probably last year, about covering kind of the history of Action Man and G.I. Joe helicopters. I believe Hasbro created the first one, the yellow helicopter for the G.I. Joe Adventure Team, which then was brought into the Action Man range, like this one here, and just molded in green plastic. But then, as Palatoid would often do, they started to modify and improve the product. So an example here is the Capture Copter, which is one of the helicopters. In fact, these are the two helicopters I don't have from the Action Man range. I've got the Assault Copter. I've got the SAS helicopter. We also have the Capture Copter and then the basic helicopter. I do have the Turbo Copter, which is a backpack mounted helicopter, which was always a kind of a cool toy. It had a push button on the side that would make the rotors spin. A ton of fun, that item. And we also have the Power Hog here, a smaller vehicle. I believe this was taken, it's heavily modified, but this was also taken from the Hasbro Adventure Team range and molded in army green, as most of Action Man's vehicles were. And the Team Control Center. And I'm just going to read the little spiel here in the catalog. With its searchlight and radar scanner, the Team Control Center will detect aliens at long range. Helicopters can then be directed in pursuit. A voice unit with 2 interchangeable records is incorporated. This is not an easy piece to find. I very rarely see these come up for sale, certainly in nice, complete condition. Moonlight 47 says, looking at catalogs like these sure takes one back to that era when you gave yourself a budget and picked what you liked. Of course, some kids gave themselves unlimited credit and got all of them. That wasn't my experience in the United Kingdom for sure, but perhaps that was something to do with the fact that I grew up in quite a working class area. So yeah. I'm just trying to find, I've missed a super chat here. Oh, here we go. Apologies there, King Out the greatest of all. Thank you for the super chat. Just wanted to say I appreciate all the work you put into your videos. Also, do you think the new indie movie will have toys? First of all, thank you for saying that. You appreciate the work I put into the videos. I do try and put a lot of work in. Even as you can see with these live streams, I try and approach them in unique ways, like having the second camera set up for the last live stream I did. But do I think the new indie movie will have toys? Yes, most certainly it will have toys. And I believe we're likely to get 6-inch scaled collector product this time around. I think Hasbro would really be missing a trick if they didn't do that. What I don't know the answer to is, will they just be action figures based on the new movie, or will they go back and give us stuff from Raiders of the Lost Ark and that kind of thing? I really don't think in today's era of cancel culture and all that kind of thing that they're ever going to give us soldiers, German soldiers in that line. If they do, they'll be heavily modified. They won't paint. Obviously, I wouldn't want them to paint swastikas on the toys in today's society. But whether they actually give us any of those kind of German military characters from the movies, I doubt it. I very much doubt it. Okay, moving on with the catalog, we now have some more very interesting Action Man items. And we get here the Skyhawk. And it says, Action Man takes to the air with this fantastic hang glider. A very interesting toy. Came in a large box. It was even bigger once you assembled it. And basically you could it was a huge hang glider that you could put your Action Man figure in and fly. But I never had this as a kid. And I just wonder how many people lost their Action Man figures when they landed on the roofs of buildings and got stuck up in the top of trees and stuff like that. The The Searchlight was a cool little accessory. I have that. It was battery powered, could light up. And a cool feature with the Searchlight is that it could actually fit into, perfectly fit into a recess in the back of the Action Man Land Rover. The Special Operations tent is also a very cool item. It came with a plastic base. The tent was made of fabric and it got laid over a structure of poles, and you could tie it down to the base itself. So once assembled, it was a little bit fragile, but you could pick it up and move it around. And something I discovered when I made my Valorverse Action Force Series 1 video is that this was always a little bit undersized for Action Man. You know, it only kind of comes up to his chest height. It was long enough that you could put a bunk bed in there and have him lay down inside. But standing outside, it always looked a little bit small. It's the perfect size for 6-inch scaled Action Force figures, and you'll see it made an appearance in that Valorverse Series 1 video. And then we have the belt-fed machine gun, which was battery-powered. It had light and sound effects, and when you pulled the trigger, the machine gun belt would actually kind of move through the feed tray. And the field radio set. I have all the items on this page except the Skyhawk, and I don't have a desire to get the Skyhawk because it's just too big and cumbersome, and I wouldn't be able to display it, so I'd just be buying a toy to put into storage, and I don't like doing that. Lester San Jose, thank you very much for the super chat. He says, thanks for all you do. Glad you'll be laboring for content you find worth your time in the most genuine way possible. Thank you, Lester. If this live stream here actually is a success, as I said, I've got digital copies of every Palatoid trade catalog going back to the 1960s. So if you guys like this content, we can do a whole series of these particular type of live streams where we go back through old Palatoid trade catalogs, and maybe even some others. I've got a really, really nice Amigo trade catalog, I think from around the same time. I think it's from 77 or 78. That one I am yet to do high quality digital scans and put it into my computer, but you know, that won't take me too long to do that. Brian Dillingham, thank you for the Dillinghamism, much appreciated. And Rex Weston says, what is your favorite Action Man vehicle? That's a real tough one for me. I'm particularly fond of the Scorpion tank. Very, very fond of the Scorpion tank. I also really like the Land Rover. I like the police motorcycle. I think it's a very... because with so much of the Action Man line being military, having something like the police motorcycle in the collection, you know, all white with the red and blue decals, it really makes it pop on a collector's shelf. Yeah, it's a tough question, Rex Weston. A very tough question. I'm going to go with the Scorpion tank. It's such an icon of the line. I'm going to say the Scorpion tank. And Articulated Chad, thank you very much for the super chat. He says, for this and more Palatoid trade catalog videos. Thank you. Much appreciated. All right. Well, there's my first vote of confidence that you guys like this type of stuff. All right. Now we've got more vehicles. Look at the volume of product that Palatoid... And this was all... it wasn't all produced in the UK. It was all designed in the UK. A lot of it was produced in the UK, but then some of it was produced in factories in the Orient. I don't remember, you know, Hong Kong, Taiwan, places like that, and then imported. But you know, we haven't even got to the different Action Man outfits yet. We've just had pages and pages and pages of different types of vehicles. We have the Assault Craft there, which I actually think you can see two Action Man figures with it there. It had a working outboard motor, very, very cool. But I actually think inflatable dinghies kind of come in all different sorts of sizes. And I actually think you could take this Action Man Assault Craft and put one 12 scaled figures in it today, and it would actually look quite cool. We also have the Seawolf there, which was the Action Man submarine. Again, another Hasbro designed item for the G.I. Joe Adventure Team line that was brought across and molded in different colors. I have a box one of these in the collection, a very, very cool toy. Very cool toy. If you see here this little black item, if I can zoom in on this, I can. You'll actually see it's got the Adventure Team logo there on the and that's actually a hand pump. So you could submerge this in water, and as you pump that, it would pump air into like the driver's cockpit, and it would help the Seawolf surface come up to the water surface, and then basically the air would slowly disseminate through the vents, and it would sink back down again. Very, very cool piece of engineering, really. And then, of course, the Royal Marine Exploration Team set, a very, very cool set. Okay, let's catch up on some super chats here. Keith Knight, he says, no comment, just drooling like a policeman in a donut shop. Thank you, Keith. Thank you for the kind super chat. And Jim Largo says, I love looking at toy catalogues from yesteryear. I hope you make this an ongoing series, perhaps with occasional guest co-host Michael French. Michael French is always welcome to be a guest co-host on the Analog Toys channel. We'll see if he's interested in popping on to the next one of these live streams and reacting to the catalogs. Okay, we've now got Action Man in the Wild West. These sets, I believe, were originally designed for the German market because the German market, the toy market at the time, was very, very anti-military. And within Germany, the range got really, really big with a lot of product that never came to the UK. But we have here the Indian Brave, the Indian Chief, the 7th Cavalry, who for some reason is wearing an Australian jungle fighter hat that's pinned up at the front, and that's not how the outfit came. It actually came with a more traditional looking 7th Cavalry cap, a blue cap, and the Cowboy Scout. I have all of these. I have all of these outfits in my collection. They're not on display just due to space. It's not my favorite line of Action Man items. So when I had to make some choices and put some things into storage, these were some of the items that went into storage. And then, of course, the horse. The horse that came with the Wild West range was dark brown in color with a brown saddle. It's not the same as the horse that came out earlier in the 1970s to go with like the 17th and 21st Lancers. That was a black horse with a black saddle and bridle and everything. Will McLaughlin, thank you very much. He said, I heard that you do more catalog streams. I love seeing these and listening to you talk about them. Thank you very much. It's easy for me when I'm talking about Action Man. I've been studying this toy line almost my entire life. We'll see how we go when we get onto some other. But I actually don't think we're going to get through these free catalogs because we're 34 minutes in and we haven't even finished the Palatoid catalog, let alone the Bradgate catalog and then the Parker catalog. So we'll see how we go. Now we get some really classic Action Man sets. So although it shows the lifeguard there, I'm certain that this was not still being sold in 1977. If it is, I want to know what card back it was sold on because I've never seen that outfit on the type of card backs that were available at this particular time. But there you go. I could be wrong. But I don't think the lifeguard was sold in 1977. The Parachute Regiment was an outfit that came out around 70 or 71, I believe, and was consistently sold right up pretty much into almost the end of the Action Man line. But the outfit evolved. The materials changed, and I believe around 79, they actually went away from the fabric web belt to the injection molded flexible PVC webbing system. I have a number of different Parachute Regiment figures in my collection showing, I don't have every variation, but I have a number of variations. The Action Man Commando, which is a very classic outfit of the line, just a basic green uniform with a zip up kind of jacket, an M60, some ammo belts and some hand grenades. And he also used to come with a little crayon so you could put camouflage paint on his face. And, of course, the Mountain and Arctic uniform. here we have some more of the famous British uniforms. So the Grenadier Guard, which was one of the few ceremonial outfits from the early 70s that continued to be sold right up into the 80s. I have a couple of variations of this outfit, including a carded version. I have it on the locker box type. The British officer in kind of his dress type uniform, the military police, the tank commander, classic outfit. You can't have a Scorpion tank without the tank commander. The Royal Air Force, which is like a working dress uniform, like the Air Force ground crew. And then the dispatch rider, which was designed to go with the motorcycle and sidecar. Where's my cursor gone? Manly Stubrick. I like that name. I'm guessing that's a play on Stanley Kubrick. So it's been loving this channel lately. So informative. Thank you very much. It's very kind of you to say so. Now, excuse me, I just need to. Been talking a lot. I need to hydrate. Moonlight 47 says, I have to say, it really is more captivating to look at product knowing it's not a mock-up. Yeah, and you'll see in some of these catalogs, you actually end up seeing some prototype variations of various outfits. So the lifeguards in the US wear a lot less. You maybe choke then, Michael Schaefer. Yeah, the lifeguards here, this is also known as the household cavalry. You have the lifeguards who are denoted by their red tunics and the blues and royals denoted by their blue tunics. Right, moving further on. Look at all the product that was available. So here we have the Soldiers of the World, which includes the British infantryman, the German stormtrooper, French resistance, Australian jungle fighter, German staff officer, and the French Foreign Legion. I have all of these in my collection. It was one of the sub-series of figures that I became really obsessed about completing very early on in my collecting journey as an adult. Some more very cool sets. The Sabotage was a hugely popular set. It actually first came out in the G.I. Joe line back in the 1960s. Hasbro designed this around, I want to say 1966 or 67. A small inflatable dinghy with just a bunch of accessories, a gas mask, which was originally came with the British soldier, the radio with the Morse code transmitter and the headset, the sticks of dynamite and the detonator, a grease gun, a flare gun, binoculars, flashlight. A really cool set, and one that was so popular, continued to sell in the Action Man range right up until about 1982. The field training exercise. I have this in my collection. I've always wanted to be able to display this with the actual rope bridge set up. That rope bridge is not a diorama piece that Palitoy used just to make this photo look cool. It actually comes with the set. And the idea was that you'd like tie one end to your bedroom door and the other one to the corner of your bed, and you would actually have a rope bridge. I have that rope bridge. I've always wanted to be able to display it somehow, like screw some hooks to the inside of like the wooden sides of a cabinet and string it across and have some Action Man figures on there. But perhaps one day, when I leave Port Hedland and move into a new house and I have a bigger collection room, I've got lots of ideas in my head for how it's going to look. Then, of course, we have the medic, the survival set. That dinghy is the same size as this one. It kind of seats one Action Man. The Royal Marine Exploration Team was a much larger inflatable dinghy that actually seated two Action Man figures. So, And the mine detector, which was battery powered, and it actually worked when Action Man hovered the end of the mine detector over the 3 little metal mines that you would get in the set. A light would light up on his backpack there. Michael Schaefer, that is a really, really cool idea. That bridge would be cool for a Temple of Doom display. I might have to see what that looks like one day with my Temple of Doom Indiana Jones figures. Now we get to one of the largest items ever made for the Action Man line. Again, another G.I. Joe Adventure Team item where the tooling was kind of... And initially, when Action Man was brought into the UK in 1966, it was just rebranded G.I. Joe product. In the early 1970s, or in fact, no, even before then, in the late 60s, Palitoy really branched out and started doing a lot of different things. They were the first ones to go into the adventure arena with like jungle explorers and polar explorers and mountaineers and stuff like that. And a lot of that product that Palitoy was really innovating was being sent back across the Atlantic and being sold in the United States. The Fight for Survival set, which is the Polar Explorer with the sled and the dog team, that was all designed by Palatoy and was then rebranded and sold in the UK. And this continued right throughout, right up until the 12-inch G.I. Joe line ended, which was around 76 or 77, I believe. That cross-pollination of ideas and designs continued all the way through. And the training tower was one of them. It was made for the G.I. Joe Adventure Team and brought into the Action Man line. Michael Schaefer, that tower is about 4 feet tall. I did do... It might be in my video about the top 10 Action Man play sets. I have it set up on this table that I have in front of me here, but I stand next to it and say, you know, I'm pretty much 6 foot tall. This gives you an idea of how big it is. It was huge, really, really huge. And the Red Devil, which was a classic outfit, had a working parachute and got sold for many, many years. Now we have all of the small arms. These were sold like pocket money sized items that would come on small card backs. So when you see this image here of the small arms, that it wasn't all of those weapons sold on one card. It was normally a rifle and a pistol, and you could get it, you know, for 40p or something like that. And you know, the idea being that a kid with just a little bit of pocket money could go in and just get a couple of extra accessories for his Action Man figure. But then we have all the workshop accessories, and then the medium machine guns, which were either bipod or tripod mounted guns. I have most of these in my collection, I believe. I think that Lewis gun there, I don't have. If I've got that, I've got a broken version. And then all the different equipment center items. You could get extra pieces of uniforms, and the bazooka's a really cool item. I've got quite a few of those in the collection, that kind of thing. And the Action Man Adventurers. So I was just talking about these. These originally came out in the late 60s and were so popular they were still being sold in the late 70s. Again, all these outfits evolved over the years. They kind of look the same, but the types of materials, they usually became inferior as they went along, as Palatoy was trying to be a little bit more economical in the production of the items. So the materials are often a little bit thinner, where some of them may have had full zippers to begin with. Later on in the line, they may just go to press studs and stuff like that. But yeah, we had the Polar Explorer, the Jungle Explorer, the Underwater Explorer, and the Mountain Explorer. Okay. That finishes kind of that set of catalog images. Now, what do I want to look at next? How are we going for time? 45 minutes. Wow. I think I'm going to skip over. I was going to discuss what they called the Palatoy called the Discovery Time items, which was toys made for much younger children. But I think in the essence of time, we need to look at something a little bit different. So let's go for, excuse me a moment, I'm just trying to suss this out. Let's take a look at the Palitoy Bradgate catalogue from 1977. So as I mentioned at the start, for anyone who joined late, the Palitoy Bradgate catalogue, the Palatoy catalogue showed a lot of product that Palitoy made itself. Toys that they designed for the British market, whereas the Palitoy Bradgate catalogue was a lot of their imported items. So let me go to share screen again, and here we have the cover of the 1977 Palitoy Bradgate. So as it says, it's their wholesale division. A very similar looking catalogue cover to the basic Palitoy one, just different colours. So we get the idea of, I suppose, a Christmas gift box on the front. And again, this is all kind of out of order. Apologies for that. But here we're going to jump in with page 8, which is a very, very... oh, hang on. No, I'm on the wrong one here. Apologies. So here we have Play-Doh, which was imported. I'm going to skip through some of this, and we're going to jump up to page 9. Have a look at these classic items. I'm pretty sure my brother had that Z Victor 4 calling all cars. It was you can see in the top right corner there, it says Talking Toys. This was a whole series of talking toys that Palitoy put out in the late 70s. The Victor 4 police car said 6 realistic police messages from this talking police car. I'm pretty sure my brother had that. An item that I always wanted but never had, and goes for an insane amount of money today, is the talking Dalek. 4 powerful commands from this talking Dalek based on the immensely popular BBC TV series Doctor Who. And then the talking telephone, which was designed for slightly younger children. Within the Bradgate catalogue, we also got a whole bunch of games. Payday, I don't remember that at all. I don't remember these. Don't remember Crazy Ball. The Just William game? Oh my word, what the hell is that? Murray Lockery says, who made that Dalek? Palitoy. This is a stream about the Palitoy trade catalogue. It was, I don't know whether they actually made it, but it was sold by Palitoy Bradgate from 1977. I'm going to skip over the rest of this stuff. So as I said, when I uploaded these images into my computer, for some reason it wouldn't put them all onto one big slide. So what I want to show you is the other photos from the Bradgate catalogue, which starts, here we go. This is what we want. So Tinker Toy is kind of like a wooden version of Meccano. But here we get some better images of the talking toys. And the little kind of sales spiel within this catalogue here said, everyone's talking about Bradgate talking toys. Successes like Z Victor 4 and the Dalek. Now the range is even bigger and better than ever, with surefire winners based on TV characters. Kojak's police car, a talking Batmobile. Add to this the impact of TV promotion, and there is another strong talking point for 1977. So as I mentioned, we don't here get images of the toys. They were probably still in development at the time. Instead, we get images of the artwork for the boxes. But yes, Palitoy Bradgate produced a Kojak talking police car and a talking Batmobile. Keith Knight, thank you very much for the super chat. He says, I have 2 Z Victor 4s, one in the original Leicestershire Police livery and one in a custom City of London livery. Had it as a kid and loved it. Excellent. Yeah, it was a little bit before my time, but I'm pretty sure my older brother had it. Yes, Ken, StreamYard, it can be frustrating at times. All right, now we get some really, really cool imagery of some... Oh, I thought it was going to be Mego items. No. The Superheroes board game. I'm not a huge board game collector, but I do like some of the very few board games I have in my collection. I have an Indiana Jones board game, a Raiders of the Lost Ark one, just because I love the artwork on the box. This was one, if I came across this at a toy show and it was reasonably priced, this is the kind of item I would pick up. And I probably wouldn't even care if it was complete, because I just like the box art. Now, here's one for Captain Michael Schaefer. The Palatoid Bradgate Star Trek game. Again, that artwork is just classic. You'll note with a lot of the Mego action figure product that came across from the US and was sold in the UK by Palitoy, they would redo all of the artwork, and their artwork is far superior to the artwork that was shown on a lot of the Mego card backs and boxes that were sold in the United States. So, and now speaking of Mego, check this out. What an amazing photo. Again, the write-up here is action figures. It's action all the way with Bradgate's fast-moving range of 8-inch action figures. The Joker and Penguin do their worst, but Batman still packs a real punch. Action crime buster Starsky and Hutch add even more excitement to this great range. Hard-hitting TV promotions will ensure success again for 1977. Here we've got a menagerie of Star Trek, Planet of the Apes, World's Greatest Superheroes, Starsky and Hutch. This is just a collection of Mego items that were available under the Palitoy Bradgate banner in 1977. That was a bit of a tongue twister there. But again, just fantastic photography. You've got obviously the Star Trek, the transporter room just there. So Starsky and Hutch, I have those 2 figures carded on some quite rare cards because they have the Australian Toll Toys sticker over the top of them. I believe in the UK was the only country in the world where you could buy the Starsky and Hutch Mego action figures and have them actually come with little police revolvers. I could be wrong, but I know certainly they weren't sold in Australia or the United States with guns, but they were sold in the UK. There could have been a few other countries as well, but... And then, of course, we have a collection of Planet of the Apes figures here. Again, some fantastic photography on display here. Here's another one for Captain Schaefer. Beautiful image, just showing all those primary colors of the different Star Trek uniforms. We have the transporter there. And interestingly, the write-up there, although this catalogue image only shows 4 members of the Enterprise and the Klingon, the write-up underneath says 4 new aliens join the Star Trek crew. The Gorn, the Keeper, the horrific Neptunian, and Chiron, combined with all the old favourites, Mr. Spock, Captain Kirk, Bones, Scotty, and the dreaded Klingon, to add new dimensions to this ever-popular range. Star Trek was very, very popular in the UK, as were Mego's superheroes. And in the UK, we had a series of fist-fighting superheroes, some of which are very, very rare to get today. They had a push button at the bottom of the lower back on the figure, and when you push that button in an arm, it would in and out. It would make the arms kind of do this in a fist-fighting kind of fashion. So here, in true 1970s form, we have 3 DC characters with a Marvel character, all being sold under one line. Like, that'll never, ever happen again. what a wonderful time to be alive and to be a kid playing with toys when you could mix DC and Marvel in the same scale, same style, and have a ton of fun. Sal, thank you very much for the incredibly kind super chat. He says, I'm late, busy at work as per usual, but wanted to stop by anyway. I was wondering what would have happened if a UK and US kid had a chance to play together and compare Death Star's Action Force Joe, the discussions, the play scenarios. Yeah, I'm sure that did happen. I always remember a kid I went to school with. I went to school with this kid in the 80s, and he had been to America on holiday and was trying to teach me about G.I. Joe before I really knew what G.I. Joe was. And he was trying to explain it, and nothing ever clicked. And I really didn't put the dots together until I moved to Australia in 1988. And we went to Australia via Singapore, and we spent a few days in Singapore, and I went into a Toys R Us there, and I saw what I thought was Action Force figures on the shelf with G.I. Joe logos. So thank you for the kind super chat, Sal. Very much appreciated. But yeah, fantastic image of the Migos fist fighting superheroes here. And so here on the right is an example of how different, if you're familiar with Mego product, and certainly the way the card backs looked in the United States. I've got a Mego carded Batman. The card back is pink, and the artwork on the side is small round circles showing a variety of different characters in the line. Palitoy completely redid these card backs. You can see now it's green, and the side panel of the card is a large image of Batman. These are highly collectible and go for big bucks if you can get the originals in good condition. Really not easy to get these days. And here we have a selection of the superhero figures. Joker, Penguin, the Lizard, which is a figure I'd like to add to my Mego collection. I don't have the Lizard. I also don't have the Thing. I would like the Thing, but I don't really have a desire to get the rest of the Fantastic Four. They're not really... Fantastic Four is not really my thing. My thing. The Thing is kind of my thing, but the Fantastic Four is not my thing. I feel like an idiot now. And then I pretty much have all... Actually, I have a carded Human Torch, so I suppose I've already got one member of the Fantastic Four. There you go. I have all the... Yeah, the only figures in this image that I don't have are Lizard and the Thing. All right, now for something a little more interesting. Space 1999. Excuse me. Further adventures with the Moonbase Alpha crew, all also available separately. So from the sound of it, there was an assortment pack, and you had Captain Koenig, Alan Carter, Captain Xantor. I'm not overly familiar with Space 1999, but I know it does have a very enthusiastic fan base. So some really great imagery here. Jeff Barker, good to see you, buddy. Says, I love a surprise live stream that I can actually catch. That's awesome. Good to see you here, man. So that is a large part of the Bradgate catalogue. And what do we... All right, now we are going okay for time, so we'll now look at the Parker catalogue. So as I said, for anyone who joined late, as I said at the start, this wasn't the same every year of Palatoy, but throughout several years in the 1970s, they would put out their dedicated Palitoy trade catalogue, which was all of their homegrown product. The Palatoid Bradgate catalogue was their kind of imported items. And then we would have the Palatoy Parker catalogue, the games division. And again, a very, very similar front cover image with a different color. So we had, the red cover, the green cover, and now we've got the blue cover with the Palatoy 77 logo on the Christmas gift box. A really nice image, I find. And the first game we have here is the Superstars. This is not one that I remember, but again, I love the artwork on these classic old boxes. The next one, though, is one that I very much do remember, and I need to make a video about this one day. The Action Man Escape from Colditz. Keith Knight was very, very kind to send me a really nice condition, complete Escape from Colditz board game. And I do very much need to make a video about that. I kind of covered the Action Man Escape from Colditz in its own segment within my Action Man documentary, but there is a broader story to be told, and I would really like to combine it and potentially do a video with Michael French where we kind of talk about the board game, the Action Man range of figures, and the Colditz Story TV show kind of all wrapped up into one. The difficulty with that in today's society is obviously there's a symbol on that page, which I apologize if that symbol offends anyone, but I'm just showing you a catalog from the 1970s. This is toy history, and history we're supposed to learn from. We're not supposed to. I don't get cancel culture. We're not supposed to cancel stuff just because we find it offensive. We're supposed to learn from this stuff. So this is just an example of a place in time, but because of the imagery on these boxes, I would find it very challenging to make a video about this particular topic. I have to figure out how I'm going to do that. The Battle for Waterloo and the Battle of Balaclava. Again, I'm not really familiar with these. I don't remember ever having them as a kid, but the artwork on those boxes is just terrific. Absolutely terrific. Wolfhound, thank you very much for the super chat. He says, great stream, Tony. The photography in the catalogs is really amazing. Thank you for putting this together. You're very welcome. Very welcome. I'm actually really enjoying this stream. I will be definitely doing some more of these. I'm away this weekend. The whole family, me and Grace had our 10th wedding anniversary almost 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago tomorrow. But I was very busy with a project in my day job, so we postponed the celebration, and we're heading away for the weekend. We're actually renewing our vows. So I'm busy this weekend, and then the following weekend, War Stories is returning on the Friday night with Michael French, and then obviously the next episode of the 3 POA. So I don't know when I can do another one of these streams, but I'll be doing another one because I've really enjoyed this, and I appreciate all the engagement from the chat. Next time, I might not make it midweek. I might try and do a weekend or something, and we'll figure it out. But thank you very much for that kind super chat. Keith Knight says, I agree, Tony. It's an offensive symbol, but it's history and should not be cancelled. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. There are a lot more images from the Parker catalog, but as I said, when it loaded into my computer, it all went a bit funky on me. So here we go. Here we have the children's games, the Whirly Wheelers. Does anybody remember this? Any UK viewers out there who remember? I don't remember this. Never before. Devil Rider. That looks like a really cool toy. An action board game including all the thrills and spills of motorbike stunt riding. Each rider tries to negotiate a flaming hoop, water jump, loop-the-loop ramp, and jumping over oil drums at very high speeds. The speed is indicated by the unique mile-per-hour throttle device, which requires skill by the participants. that was probably a really frustrating game, the way I just read that. But yeah, look at that artwork on the box there. Devil Rider, thrills and spills on the Stuntman circuit. Fantastic stuff. The Action Man game. I don't have this in my collection, but you know, that artwork, if I ever came across it at you know, what I consider a reasonable price, I would definitely pick it up. And Horse of the Year. That's definitely something that my my cousin Bethany would have enjoyed. She was a West Sussex County show jumping champion and rode horses her whole life. She's just 1 year older than me. Salvo. This is a game I do remember. A powerful game of sea warfare. A little bit more sophisticated than Battleship. And again, with some terrific art. Palitoy really knew how to nail the artwork for their toy packaging. Look at that. Salvo. Terrific. Wheel of Fortune. I don't remember this one. The Pocketeers. So some mini pocket games. This was relatively new type of items that Palatoy was getting into selling. I imagine the Cup final Pocketeer would have been a very popular one in the UK back in the day, most definitely. Wolfie762 says, "Oh wow, Battleship with some bollocks." I love it. Thank you, Will McLaughlin. He says, "Super stream, one for the ages. I'm grateful to have shared this, shared with all of you." Thank you very much. I know sitting here as a presenter, I kind of get these gut feelings when I think a live stream is kind of going well and when it's not. And I've really enjoyed this one. And it's incredible when I think that I went out for dinner last night with Grace. It was a friend's birthday and had a few beers, and it just kind of popped into my head. And I was like, hey, if I wake up in the morning and I feel like doing a stream, that's what I'm going to do it on. So it was a very kind of last minute thing, but yeah, I've enjoyed it, and I've certainly enjoyed all the engagement from you guys here in the chat. So very much appreciated. The Whirly Wheelers. So that was the image that was on like the front cover of this section. So within these trade catalogs, you would have the front cover of the catalog itself, but then as you would go through, kind of each chapter, like the Action Man chapter, would have its own kind of cover page. So the Whirly Wheelers. It's Whirly Wheelers, a fabulous race game in which cyclists pedal furiously around the track. Which one will win? Cyclists jockey for position. Has an automatic lap counter, an all-action game for 2 to 4 players, aged 4 to 10 years. Not familiar with this one at all, but there you go. Okay, now we get into the family games. As I said, a number of these images were kind of out of order. So when we get to the family games, I think some of the family games were items like the Escape from Colditz set that I showed on the previous slide. But there's still a number of slides to go through here. So, Gambler. Does anyone remember this? Because I'm not familiar with this one. Looks like a fun game, though. Have a few Cinzano the Biancos or a snowball or something like that. Make the wife a snowball, have a lager. That's the kind of thing that British people would do on a Saturday night and get together with friends. Boggle. This is a game that I do remember. I very much remember Boggle. Parker's hidden word game. Players shake up the letter cubes and find the hidden words. A race against time to make words out of the adjacent letters. It's fun, fast-moving, maddening game for the whole family, and also teaches you how to spell. There you go. When games were a lot more simple, I learned more about spelling from playing Scrabble with my grandmother than I did anything at school, because she was an expert Scrabble player. Probe. This is another kind of secret word type game. Careers, ecology, politics, big business, sports. That sounds really boring. And then Masterpiece, the art auction game. Not for me. Sorry. KB says this could be the first game I recognized in a Brit magazine that was equally popular in the United States. Which game was that? I was moving pretty quick. Keith Knight, you bugger. What we'll have to do, mate, one day is next time I'm in the UK, we'll have to sit in a pub all afternoon and we'll play the board game and get pissed. That sounds fun. Risk, a very, very well-known game. This French game brings out the Napoleon. This French game, appropriately enough, brings out the Napoleon in the best of us. It's an absorbing test of skill, strategy, and determination. The stakes are high, domination of continental Europe, no less. Risk is popular in many countries and looks like conquering Britain too. 2 to 6 players, ages 10 upward. And then we have a board game called Airways. Interesting, I suppose. Scooper Pete. Careers, rethink your life choices. Yeah. Don't try and be a YouTuber. It's a fool's game. Yeah, Airways, the world's most authentic airline game. It's probably the world's only airline game. Radio calls, radar approach, air traffic control. We think it's a game. So do all these great airlines. Pan Am, Swiss Air, Qantas, which they've spelled Q-U-A. There's no U in Qantas. British Airways. Weird stuff. The Magnificent Race. I do kind of remember this. The race game that includes its own villain, Dastardly Dan. The players have a race around the world. Each player has 4 vehicles. So many different variations on the similar kind of board game concept going on here. Spill and Spell and Pit. Oh, now we're getting into some classic British toys here. As it says, so this is the front cover for this chapter of the catalogue. Striker. This was home game style stuff, appealing obviously to the most popular sport in the UK. That was the most popular sport in 1977 and still is today, and that's football, which some of us call soccer in other parts of the world. But you'll see there in the top right corner, Striker, with the print there, TV promoted, because this was advertised quite heavily on British television. Here we have Super Striker, a five-a-side football with a kick. Players actually kick the ball. So you would have these little figures and a small ball, and you would have to try and kick the ball. It was a ton of fun. Really, really fun stuff. KB, was Monopoly a thing in the UK or is it solely an American institution? No, Monopoly was a huge thing in the UK. It was huge in Australia. I think Monopoly is quite well known worldwide. I just don't think that Palitoy / Parker had the rights to Monopoly. It was probably sold via a different company, which is why it hasn't appeared in this catalogue. Keith Knight said, my mate had this. All he did was set it up and West Ham were already 2-0 down. But yeah, you were able to get Striker or Super Striker. I can't quite remember what the difference was. I imagine it was just the size of the board game. In Super Striker here, the goalkeepers really dive for the ball. So I believe there's a lever at the back there, and that's how you used to operate the goalkeepers. Super Striker now includes the Wembley Fast Pitch, 8 kicking figures, 2 diving goalkeepers, goal and nets. The figures will be dressed in new red shirts, white shorts, and a black and white striped shirt and shorts. The 1977 Striker figures have been completely remodeled. So now they've got some players kick with their left foot, different facial expressions, different hairstyles, posing arms, new team strips, all of that kind of thing. You can see Palitoy were really pushing, or Palitoy Parker were really pushing this item by providing a lot of information about it in the particular catalogue. So we've got the diving goalkeepers here and the assorted teams. And that is the end of the Palatoy trade catalogues for 1977. I'm a couple of minutes over. That's fine. I really, really enjoyed this stream, and I really enjoyed your interaction here. Thank you all for being here, playing a part in the conversation. It is very much appreciated. What is also appreciated is all the support that I get from my patrons. I've done a number of Patreon exclusive videos just recently. I'm not going to kind of get into too much of it here, but the patrons know that I am on the verge of kind of changing up some of my approach to content on YouTube. You're going to be seeing videos not quite so frequently, but you're going to be seeing much bigger in-depth videos. But they are only possible with the support of the audience. So if you can, and you're interested in supporting Analog Toys on Patreon, you do get, I can honestly, hand on heart, look myself in the mirror and say that I think you do get a lot of value for money on Patreon. I've been members of other Patreon platforms that don't provide anywhere near the volume of extra content that is available there. Lots of video messages, behind the scenes information. I make some exclusive little videos for Patreon from time to time. And of course, access to all of our produced videos 24 hours early, which I think going forward with my concept of doing videos less frequently, but doing bigger, longer videos, I'm probably going to offer that to my patrons now as a 48-hour exclusivity window. So they get 2 days to enjoy that video before it goes wide, before it goes public to the wider YouTube audience. So I would very much appreciate anyone's support on Patreon. Thank you all for tuning in, and I'm really looking forward to doing the next one of these live streams. I'll tell you what, after this, not here in the live chat, but in the comments below this stream, pick a year that you would like to see me focus on for the next stream. And it can be any year from 1966 to 1984. I don't recommend doing 84 because that Palatoy was kind of on its way out of the toy business at the time, and the catalogue really suffered. I'll just tell you that now. The photography is not awesome. It's not a very, it's like a very rushed together catalogue, that one. So let's make it 66 to 83. Not in the live chat, but in the comments below. Write the year that you would like to see on the next stream, and whichever one I see most of will go for that one next. But this has given us an opportunity to do a whole bunch of these live streams, and thank you all for being here. Just before I sign off, we have one more super chat from Wolfie762. Thank you very much, kind sir. That was a lot of fun, Tony. Great idea for a stream. We were glued to the TV here. Thanks. I really appreciate that. I'm glad you found that the case, and I'm hoping that this stream has a lot of rewatchability going forward as well. So, all right, patrons and subscribers, not forgetting everyone else. Thank you all for being here. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you very, very soon. Most likely, you'll see me next on the Return of War Stories on September 2nd, where me and Michael are going to be talking about the film Waterloo. All right.